Hello everyone, welcome to the lecture on religion and identity politics. This lecture is part of your paper on media and margins. In this lecture, we will try to understand the concepts of religion and identity politics as per se, so as to recognize it in broader social life. The lecture will enable us to understand the varied dynamics of causes of marginalization. It will also try to relook into the different trends emerging in India. You will also learn to locate the intersectional aspect of it within the diverse society of the country, be it local, regional, or at national level. Let us now begin. India, the country with diverse cultures, has a massive history where once brings in the concept of marginalization in multifarious aspects. It is no doubt a land which embraces a person belonging to different religions, caste, creed, language, race, etc. It also has its own limitations as well. History stands testimony to the multiple aspects of inequality prevailing within the ideal and diverse country, the core being the cultural and political dynamics at large. India has been under the rule of different powers in the past, still it had stood strong against all such powers. This lecture is an attempt to focus on the various elements of the Indian scenario and the subsequent discussions emerging out of it. Religion is a very broad concept which has wide range of connotations for different people in the world. It is so powerful a word that it can unite as well as create trouble for the entire human race. One may be an avid believer of the religious ideals while the other may be a total atheist. It largely depends on the environment in which an individual is brought up since childhood. It also depends on one's ability to question between logic and the science behind it. Many a time people just follow blindly without giving any thought over it. Religion in itself is multidimensional and has many aspects associated to it. It is not only personal but also becomes collective within the larger ambit of religious consciousness and identity. It is an important institution which itself has a cultural dimension to it. There is a whole set of beliefs involved which is a way of linking oneself with the supernatural world or with abstract powers. Some classical definitions of religion include one of the founding fathers of sociology, Durkheim, in his seminal book The Elementary Forms of Religious Life, defined religion as a unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things. According to him, religion is a social fact which needs to be explained with other facts of the society. The anthropologist Clifford Geertz defined religion as a system of symbols which acts to establish powerful, pervasive, and long-lasting moods and motivations in men by formulating conceptions of a general order of existence and clothing these conceptions with such an aura of factuality that the moods and motivations seem uniquely realistic. There are various functions of religion, which can be: it acts as a means of providing social cohesion. It acts as a mechanism of social control through various religious doctrines, norms, and values. And it also provides emotional support in adverse situations. While religion seems to be a unifying agent for the majority of the people, it can also divide the people of the same country as well. Identity politics, as the word suggests, has been described by many scholars as a modern phenomenon. Craig Calhoun rightly elucidates the whole process where he puts forward his views that it is during the modern times that we face aggravated forms of alliance of personal and specific categories of identities and re-establish the concept of self-sameness. It is basically a modern process, as some scholars feel that emphasizing on identity based on core organizing principles such as ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual preferences or caste positions etc. are a type of compelling remedy for anonymity in an otherwise uncongenial society filled with modern elements. It is thus rightly said to be a pattern of belonging, a search for comfort, and an approach to community. The believers of identity politics usually use the power of myths, cultural symbols, and kinship relations to mold the feeling of shared community and gradually politicize the various aspects in order to claim the recognition of their definite identities. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy states that the laden phrase identity politics has come to signify a wide range of political activity and theorizing founded in the shared experiences of injustice of members of certain social groups. Rather than organizing solely around the belief systems, programmatic manifestos or party affiliation, identity political formations typically aim to secure the political freedom of a specific constituency marginalized within its larger context. Members of that constituency assert or reclaim ways of understanding their distinctiveness that challenge dominant oppressive characterizations with the goal of greater self-determination. So, the identification of members of a group based on shared common attributes or some of the attributes like gender, language, religion, caste, ethnicity, tribe, etc. denote the formation or existence of identity and the mobilization on the basis of such attributes or markers leads to the formation of identity politics. Religion and politics have become fancy topics of debate and discussion, which aptly goes with the saying personal is political. It is a history of its own which has different impact upon people of varied religions of the world. It often gets linked to the whole issue of identity politics and merges with the concepts such as nationalism, secularism, etc. People have multiple identities, but gradually how we want to be recognized or represented in society brings in the entire aspect of differences among people. There is always the constant fear as well as insecurity among different groups of people, giving rise to intersections of groups which leads to competition and struggle as well. Referring to the mythological history, it has a deep and age-old relation between religion and politics. It also provides authority to the governments that remained in the existence until the 18th century Enlightenment period, the form of legitimacy that the so-called religious fundamentalists in the later 20th and early 21st century would want to re-establish. As politics and religion used to support one another, with religion entering into politics with a pinch of divine elements in lieu of state enforcing religious dogma, many religious and political leaders around the world seem to like the policy and would like to reinstate such an arrangement. Although the enormous diversity of religious expression is given, it is difficult, maybe imprudent, to broadly postulate about the relationship between religion and politics, from established institutionalized beliefs to other forms, and the different forms of politics. The work is made easier by using a rather narrow view of both religion and politics, in spite of the diversion in spite of the division, seems to appear more theoretical than real. On one hand, religion is related with the supernatural elements and revolves on the institutions like mosques, church, etc. On the other hand, politics concerns the way in which society organizes as well as governs itself and maintains law and order. Where religion is considered to be a private personal experience which involves spiritual aspects, politics is related with the public expression of the collective wishes of the society. Where religion views existence of temporality where religion views existence of temporality as a preparation for higher purposes of spirituality, politics on the other hand considers existence of the earthly virtues as an end in itself. Where religion pays attention to prayer and rituals, politics emphasizes more on the rational, scientific and material elements. The division, the division of religion and politics is too clear as it suggests clearly defined and mutually understandable realm between spiritual and secular authorities. Nothing is far from the truth. Religion and politics has always been endearing to the general masses of the people, which has been interactional, and that interaction has often been confrontational if not violent. Problems begin to arise when religion considers itself to be the sole keeper of the society's moral values, employs the state to put forward its will on the larger community of people, or when the state begins a new chapter vying with prevailing religious sentiments and history stands testimony to it. As a case in point, unable to persuading the Americans to stop drinking, churches in the United States in the earlier 20th century easily turned to state coercion, eagerly supporting the 19th Amendment of the Constitution. The Islamic fundamentalists who got hold of power in Iran in 1979 had no concern about using political means for meeting religious ends. On the contrary, people having a secular bent of mind had frequently relied on political power to curb religious influence. The case was like Mustafa Kemal Atatürk and the founder of modern Turkey, whose programs came at a high price for Muslim clerics. Likewise, in Communist China, incorporation of Tibet in 1950 paved way for the Dalai Lama to visit India in 1959, and eventually the destruction of thousands of Buddhist monasteries and nunneries of the Himalayas and the death of numerous monks. As for the case of United States, the Supreme Court's decision of the early 1960s on the prayer in the public schools that attempted to clear the boundary between religious practices and public institutions still irritates the religious conservatives. Accelerating the process of complication of the interaction between religion and politics, there have been frequent attacks by one religious group upon the other, normally the dominant body against the minority ones, and such conflicts have apparent political repercussions, as can be seen in modern India. With more than 80% of the population classified as Hindu, it would appear that the small Muslim, Christian, Sikh elements posed no threat. Yet, the Indian nationalists who consider Hinduism as a unifying aspect of their culture view it in a different way. As a consequence of it, a Muslim mosque of the 16th century was demolished in December 1992 by the members of the political party and a Hindu assembly, two of the most aggressive parties that can be seen in India. Apart from it, the Hindu-Muslim violence claimed the lives of thousands of Muslims in most parts of India, which caused many numbers of Hindus to flee from Muslim-dominated Bangladesh and instigated Muslim terrorists to bomb Bombay. Christians have evoked the rage of Hindu nationalists who tried to restrain the Pope's visit to India in November 1999. This was an alleged attempt by the Christian missionaries to convert the Indian Hindus. Many Hindu nationalists considered that such conversion campaign posed grave threat as well as jeopardize the unity and integrity of the country by aggravating Christian separatist movement. The Christians blamed many political leaders who came to power in 1998 at the head of the coalition government. Such kind of issues seriously tested the traditional tolerance of Hinduism and created doubt on the capability of the rulers of India in achieving an ideal and pluralistic society. For the spiritual descendants of Abraham, Hinduism remains the most difficult religious system to understand. While comparing Hinduism to Christianity, it can be seen that it indeed has a God, one ultimate reality, and many gods and goddesses. There is no founder as such. There are multiple scriptures rather than one book. Brahmins, but no priests in the Christian sense, and no central institution like a church. Rituals, myths, ethics, etc. form important elements, and belief is of less significance, there being no major creed and less common techniques. But there are also things which may be inherent to Hinduism which may not figure out in comparison with Christianity. Hinduism comes under the fold of the complex socio-religious system of caste and its multifarious popular practices, which in the terms of the Christians constitutes magic and superstition instead of religion. The complex history of India has contributed to the enormous variety of religious concepts and experiences associated with Hinduism. Around the early part of the 2nd millennium BC, nomadic people from the northwest invaded India's northern half. These Aryans, who brought their gods, were associated with heavenly phenomena such as the sun, the wind, storm, stars, rain, and the moon. The native darker-skinned inhabitants, the Dravidians, remained more devoted to their pre-existing earthly pantheon: vegetation, animal life, rivers, and the mountains. The recent excavations in the Indus Valley have demonstrated that the advanced level of the Dravidian civilization. So this was not a case of more advanced people subjugating culturally inferior ones. The Aryans, however, did employ a more advanced military technology. Both groups accepted the elements of the other's beliefs, and gradually they formed an uneven and highly diffused system composed of millions of gods, each an imperfect representation of the ultimate reality. The favorite term for the supreme ultimate was Lord Brahma, who was also known as three forms of Brahma: the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer. Vishnu takes form in numerous avatars, the most famous of which are Lord Ram, Sita, and Lord Krishna. One can thus appreciate how theologically inclusive Hinduism can be. Hinduism also differs from the religions of the book in that it has accepted the prevailing caste system that divides Indians into four social groups, namely the priests, the warriors rulers, the merchants, and lastly ordinary labourers. Later, a lower fifth group was added, which were identified as the untouchables. Historically, caste reflects the traditional Indian divisions of labour and the social supremacy of the priests, with the colours white, red, brown, and black associated with the four castes. The Dravidians were dark-skinned. The Vedas, which are considered to be Hinduism's most sacred scriptures, they also reflect the dominance of the Aryans. The role of the Aryan gods, namely Lord Agni, Varun, Indra, predominate. Towards the end of the Vedic period, some of the other unidentified authors crafted the Upanishads, which seek to put in a more individual element to the impersonal and terrifying aspects of traditional Hindu religion. Both the Vedas and the Upanishads are classed as revealed. This revelation was internal, not external. Among those scriptures handed down are the epics such as Mahabharata, Ramayana, the Puran and the Sutras. The Indian classic Bhagavad Gita, which is part of Mahabharata, offers the narrative or Lord Krishna's instruction of the warrior Prince Arjun that the prince must above all the follow his dharma. The Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana definitely constitute the best loved expositions of the Hindu tradition. In 1987, every Sunday morning, more than 80 million Indians watched a television production of the latter, The Story of Lord Ram. Hindu scholar T.N. Madan stated that the Gita has acquired in the modern times the status of a central scripture comparable to the Bible and that to Quran. It is believed by many Hindus to be the word of God. Even if Hinduism did not develop a large existential organization, the above traditions were passed down by three types of religious figures: the storyteller, the spiritual guide, and the ascetic. The Shankaracharya had to be both a Brahmin by caste and experienced as a guru. Hindus seek moksha, which means release, from samsara through one of the three paths of the intellect, that is, of action or of devotion. The key insight of the Vedic tradition and the Upanishads is the Sanskrit Tat Tvam Asi, or the Brahman, and Atman, or the One. But even this basic principle of the Shankara philosophical system is questioned by some later Hindu systems. Both Hinduism and Buddhism assert that yogistic discipline is the best method for liberation. Although there have been tremendous changes within the larger domain of political mobilization on the basis of religion, it is ultimately the common masses who have to bear the burden in the name of group solidarity and so on. In this regard, Marx pointed out as to how religion acts as the opium of the masses, which holds true no matter to which country a person belongs. It is because of religion that people unite as well as fall apart due to its own social underpinning. So it largely depends on an individual on how he or she wants to be recognized in the society, which brings in all the differences. Let us now sum up what we have learnt from this lecture. What is important to notice is that religion and identity have become the key perpetrators of modern politics. People use it as a tool to put forward their vested interests. The concept of secularism remains to be realized in the true sense of the term, as India is not home to only a single religion of the world. One distinctive argument advanced forcefully by T.N. Madan is that a secular political structure can thrive only in a secular society, and since a majority of people in India are firmly religious in their views, secularist institutions have an uncertain future. Apart from that, the vast intersectional aspects within a particular religion makes it even more difficult to classify and meet the latent ideologies behind. At the broader level, it may seem easy to discuss it in totality, but in actual terms, it is also multi-layered and that it is very taxing altogether. Hence, it is important to understand the multifarious elements, in particular, have a meaningful discourse on it. This brings us to the end of our lecture. You are now advised to read the module very carefully for more details. For further study, do go through the extended reading list which is provided with this lecture and attempt the questions given at the end. Thank you.